Is a windy, wild day, rainy day in Southern California. Welcome in to MJT football. We were a moment or two late to go live, but that's new here. That's nothing new. You should already know how we roll. If it is your first time here, please consider subscribing. We're going to be going over different topics, news, whatever's going on in the NFL. We're three friends who love talking football, but we're always looking for a fourth. So that's why you hit that subscribe button. The Jets need to be tested. Derek Carr, first ballot Hall of Fame? What?
Woo! I don't know if I want to put this on early today in the show, Tony, or not, because it's a Raider windy day. Like you said, the autumn wind is blowing through Southern California on a February. What is it? What is today? Friday? It's Friday?
It's Friday, as my kids say. I'm not cool enough to say that. My daughter has told me several times, you're never allowed to say Friday. And I was like, yeah, you're right. It does sound stupid. What's going on, Stephen Armstrong? So many wonderful, regular people that stop by the show and comment. We love hanging out and talking football, chopping it up with them in the comments. If you're listening to the audio version of this, head on over to YouTube, search up MJT Football, hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell. It'll let you know when we go live, and you can join in on our chats. We are going to be talking about Derek Carr and Daniel Jones and some of the draft prospects that are there. We're going to be talking about the Raiders GM going on Bussing with the Boys, great podcast with Taylor Lewan, released parting ways with the Titans, tackle, contemplating retirement. Will Compton, shout out Will. Will Compton's very, very funny, man. Yeah, just a really great show. And I think the thing that's great about football is they find a way to keep it relevant year round, like getting into the combine, all these kids working out for the biggest job interviews of their life, which is amazing.
Wrong one.
I'm excited. You want to just let's jump right in.
We might as well.
Daniel Jones, right? So Daniel Jones, the report comes out, he wants $45 million. He also leaves CAA, which CAA is, if you don't know, the CAA is a huge agency, right? Talent rep agency place. CAA is a place where, like, me as an actor, when I was still acting, would have loved to have been repped by CAA because they just have a gigantic Hollywood client list. I was never good enough, never even on the radar of CAA, but that's where Daniel Jones was at. He leaves and he goes to Athlete First or something. And the reports came out that Daniel Jones wants $45 million, but then the report was actually put out there. This information was put out by CAA, the people he fired. Maybe he doesn't want that. Maybe he does want that. I think it all comes back to this, Joe. It doesn't matter who put it out there. And Joe made a great point before the show talking about the fact that, like, even if he gets $45 million, he's still going to be like the 10th, 8, 9, 10th highest paid quarterback in the league. The thing that I want to know from anybody who's in the chat, or if you're listening to this later, and I want to know from Joe, is, are you comfortable paying Daniel Jones? And what is it? Like, if you were the GM, what would be your comfort level? How much would you pay him? Or would you just go in another direction? What would you do?
Okay, me personally, the only team that I would be comfortable paying him with if I was the GM would be the New York Football Giants, because I've had him in my building. I've seen what he's done with my offense. I know what he could do with Brian Dable, and I've seen the improvement that he made with the coaching staff. Now, if I was any other team and I'm like, Daniel Jones, let's bring him in, I'm going, $45 million? No. Maybe okay, you have to pay what you're comfortable with the quarterback market, but the quarterback market, you already know that you're spending anywhere from 30 to 40 to $50 million. So with Daniel Jones, I know that he's not a top tier quarterback, but I know that he's good enough that he's going to win some games for me. So personally would feel comfortable paying him $35 million, maybe 40 at the most, if I was bringing him onto my team. Now the New York Giants are in a different situation, like I've already said, because they had him in here. They know what he's going to do. And you know what, Tony? Maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe he didn't want $45 million. Maybe he said $4 to $5 million, and we're just all hearing it wrong.
Well, Stephen Armstrong in the chat here is saying 35-ish. I like that number. I think that's good. You pay Barkley first. Afix, our champion 49ers fan here. If DJ wants $45 million, he's effectively pushing Saquon out of the picture. Saquon was the only good, consistent thing the Giants had last year. I would disagree with that a little bit. I do think that Daniel Jones, the running ability and the raised efficiency with lack of turnovers was also a bright spot, because I do think there is something to the fact that he was playing really good football, not great football, but really good football with Richie James and Hodges. I can't even think of the guy's first name at the moment. So if those are your top receivers, I think getting a tight end, like who's to say that you don't bring in, Mike Gesicki or Dalton Schultz at the tight end spot, bring him a nice target in that area there. And then you go out to the free agency market and you see what is there at wide receiver, or you see what is available in the trade market. We've seen DeAndre Hopkins. That's a nice, big, friendly target that could be floating around out there. Maybe, I don't know, T. Higgins. Are you willing to give up a first-round pick to the Bengals for T. Higgins? I would if I was them. But Isaiah, thank you, Stephen. Here's the thing, and I think that this is a shift we could see potentially this summer, Joe, is if these guys want fully guaranteed contracts, they're going to start being shorter deals because of the injuries that come with playing the game of football. You can't be saying, I'm giving you 5-6 years, all this guaranteed money, and having that on the books for 5 or 6 years. It's just not good business. It's not smart business. No good team is going to do this.
But if you're an NFL player or an NFL team, I'm all for short contracts. I'm all for 2-3 year deals, maybe 4 at the max, all fully guaranteed if that's what you want to go. Because I'm not committing a bunch of money into you like they have been. And 2, if you're an NFL player and you're taking, like Daniel Jones, say you go, I want 2 years, $80 million guaranteed. I'll take that right now. And he goes with it. And then in 2 years from now, say he dominates the league for 2 more years or he does great, he gets another big payday. So I would be happy. I mean, but NFL players, I understand you're taking that risk, right? Because at any given play, you're done too. So they want that guaranteed money, but $80 million guaranteed over 2 years, I would take that risk right there.
So you're guaranteed $80 million. That doesn't really feel risky to me, Joe. You still got $80 million. You still technically would have a chance to go somewhere else and make more money. It's not like you would just be done. So I do think that the sweet spot is like the first 2 years guaranteed. And if you're a player like Daniel Jones, you get a 3rd-year team option, So 3 years, $120 million, $40 million guaranteed each of the first 2 years. There it is. And the 3rd year is a team option at $40 million guaranteed. And at that point, which you can figure it out from there. But I think the same thing for Lamar Jackson. And why wouldn't you want to come back to the market as often as you can if you believe you're that kind of person that is going to be great? This is kind of what we've seen LeBron James do. We've seen a lot of certain players in the NBA where they're being able to get back to the table faster. Because unless you're the thing with Patrick Mahomes is they're never going to let Patrick Mahomes feel disrespected. Like they're not going to let Patrick Mahomes play out this 10-year deal, and in year 9 of the deal, Patrick Mahomes is the 29th highest paid quarterback. That's not going to happen. It'll be reworked so that Patrick is always in that window of being in the top 15. Maybe he slips to 18 for a year or two, but always in that 15 or higher range. But the team still has flexibility within a cap structure of what it is.
Well, look who's doing it perfectly. The guy that's setting the example that I know everybody's going, look at Deshaun Watson, and that's the money that we want. Throw the Watson out the window. the guy you want to focus on and the guy you want to go after and the guy you want to focus your career and contracts off is sitting in Minnesota. And his name's Kirk Cousins. That's exactly what Kirk Cousins, when he left the Washington football team, he signed a 3-year, $84 million contract, right? Remember that? And that at that time was all fully guaranteed. And all of us were like, what? We all blew our mind. And we were like, but if you look at it, it was smart. It was what is that average? I don't know what the average is. 28 million, close to 30 million a season, but right under that. So he got his money. And then what? Last year he signed another 2-year, $66 million fully guaranteed. So if you put that together, that's 5 years, 150. I'm not paid. I don't get paid to do math, Tony, but $150 million, 5 years, $150 million fully guaranteed for a quarterback. And then what, next year he's on the market again and you don't gonna think he's gonna get paid again? So Kirk Cousins is making money and he's doing it the right way. Yes, he's risking that injury where he's like, where he can go out and get that Deshaun Watson, give me the 5 years, $260 million guaranteed, and no matter what happens in 5 years, I'm hurt. If I'm hurt or not, I still get paid. But he's also banking on himself, like you said. Players go out there with an incentive to bank on themselves, make that money. So I like what Kirk Cousins has done, and I wonder why players don't do more like him, and go out there and make his money. Because by the end of the time when Kirk Cousins retires, he's going to make $300 million.
Yeah, he's gonna make a ton of money. I think the gap that we're looking at, Joe, is the risk of injury with how they play. Lamar Jackson and even Daniel Jones this year had a higher risk of injury, right? How much they're running the ball. Daniel Jones had like 700 rushing yards this year. So it's like, if you're going to play that style of football, there's going to be a bit higher risk of injury. I think if the Giants knew that there was a better answer out there, like somebody who's going to come in and because they got kind of spoiled with having Eli Manning at quarterback because he was so great at handling the New York media and keeping the team relevant every couple of years, playing good enough football to have them in contention, whatever. But the days of Eli's style winning Super Bowl, I don't think you can have a good, solid defense and then hit a hot streak. You can, but it just feels unlikely. You'd rather have that for sure, no doubt. We got a guy who's going to go into the playoffs and go toe-to-toe with the best. And I think that's what the Eagles found out that they have this year. And that's why I don't think there's going to be any budge with them. But just trying to figure out what it is. But again, Jalen Hurts falls into that territory too, where if he says, I want all this guaranteed money, it's like, dude, the last 2 years towards the end of the year, your play style leaves you banged up. There's concerns about how you run the football so much that running backs are struggling to get cash because the amount of hits they're taking. I don't think there's any question, although the owner we think is kind of cheap. We know the owner of the Bengals is cheap. But if Joe Burrow said, I want all this guaranteed money or I'm not playing here, he's writing that check, right? Like he'd be a fool to not write that check for Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Because the play style seems more like you can replicate that year after year after year. Put a solid offensive line in front of Joe, and hopefully we don't see another torn knee injury. Same thing. We kind of feel that way with Herbert. But some of these more mobile guys, there's a lot of injury risk baked into that. They're missing games every year.
And I want to get to this. AFIC says it's the current regime's fault for not picking up his 5th-year option. Otherwise, they'd have another year to evaluate. Okay, I understand. But at that time, Daniel Jones didn't fit the criteria. He didn't deserve a 5th-year option.
No.
Then Brian Dable came in, and he played great this year, and he deserves an extension. He deserves that 5th year. But at that time, I think the NFL needs to do something about that 5th-year extension, because like Josh Jacobs didn't get his 5th year extended for the Raiders. There's a couple players out there that didn't get that 5th year, and then they go on and play better. I think the extension is too early in the offseason for these teams to evaluate some of the players. I know that you're going to be like, well, they had them for 4 years. But sometimes it takes that extra 5th year or the new coaching staff that comes in to make that player great again. So I'm not sure if that 5th year is just too early for some teams, and I understand why they do it, but teams can't make that commitment when you're looking at Daniel, like especially looking at Daniel Jones last year. You're like, I don't know. I don't want to go with that 5th year because he might not be our quarterback. And then Brian Dable made him that quarterback for you guys, made you believe in Daniel Jones because you, Tony, last year we're hating on Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I'm being realistic. But this is why, Joe. If your team has invested a first round pick in a position that is as valuable as the QB spot, or getting a 5th year keep option on a running back that you don't plan to pay long term anyways. They knew even if Josh Jacobs had the kind of year he had, they should have known, oh, well, we're going to franchise tag him anyways, and the tag is going to be more than the 5th year option would have been. He would have been trying to negotiate this year, no matter what, for a long-term contract, but at least you would have had him under contract for a cheaper amount this year. With the quarterback position, I'm with A-Fix. The Giants completely failed this one because you're looking at, well, let's say Daniel Jones is a total bust this year. Okay, you give him his 5th year option, but now he hit in your offense, and now he wants a crazy amount of more money, and it's like, well, you don't even have that flexibility. Let this dude hold out on his 5th year option, as opposed to him holding out and we have to franchise tag him, and now we can't use the franchise tag on Saquon Barkley because he didn't. I just don't see the benefit in not giving. The Chargers should not have given a 5th year option to Jerry Tillery. No, he was not good enough to get a 5th year option. But Josh Jacobs should have gotten it. Daniel Jones should have gotten it because he's a quarterback. I would even say if you can get a 5th year option on Zach Wilson, if you can get a 5th year option on any of these guys, Baker, Sam Darnold, use it. Quarterback position is fragile, and if you are an offensive coach and you think, there might be a chance, like, let's keep these players in our building for less money.
So, do you really think that Daniel Jones, and let's go back into circle, do you really think Daniel Jones went to the New York Giants and said, I want $45 million? Or do you think the agency just threw it out there?
No. I don't think Daniel Jones has gone and said anything other than, I want to be a Giant. The owners want him to be a Giant. And I think the person who does the salary cap, who's the GM there? Gettleman? And
no, he's gone.
Coach Brian Dable are sitting around going, we had a good, solid season. We want to bring back Saquon. We want to get wide receivers. We want to maybe interior offensive line we might be able to look at in the draft, but we'd also like to get some help in the secondary on defense. We'd like to, get some more, bring in some more edge rushers to help out Ojulari and help out Kayvon Thibodeau on the other side and Dexter Lawrence in the middle. Like, let's really strengthen the areas of our team. But $45 million, if that's going to hamper your ability to keep players and build on your roster, then as a quarterback and a leader, you should be going, let's figure it out. And ultimately, we're talking about all this, and I do think they're going to figure it out, and they're going to make it work. Like, Daniel Jones has more value to the Giants than he does to any other team. And that's why it's going to work out.
Yeah, and we're not – I know everybody's like, well, if you pay Daniel Jones, you're going to lose Barkley. Off the air, Tony, we looked it up, and the Giants have the 4th best salary cap in the NFL going into, or most space in salary cap going into this offseason. They're the 4th best in salary cap. So they can make it work. It just depends on how much guaranteed money you do and what the signing bonus, all this stuff that you work it out. You can get both Daniel Jones and Barkley back on this team. And we both know that the salary cap at this point is a myth anyways. If you want some players, you're going to get them on your team.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of, it's weird though, because it would be the riskiest offseason. Like, if we looked at it and we go, okay, we're evaluating this, like all the free agency is mostly over and the draft is over, and we go back and we evaluate the Giants, right? And we go, wait, so they brought back, free agent wise, they brought back Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, a running back that has battled injuries, and a quarterback that had one startable season in the NFL. Like, he had one season where he was a solid starter in the NFL. That's what they spent the majority of this money on. And I think we'd be looking at it going, that's a risky offseason right there.
Well, let me ask you this. If you had to pay one of them who are you bringing back, Daniel Jones or Saquon Barkley?
I'm paying the quarterback. I'm always paying the quarterback over the run. It's not. There's nothing to do with Saquon Barkley. I think he's the more dynamic, special player. But Saquon Barkley's got 3 good years left of football. Daniel Jones could take another step. Everybody's going, well, he maxed out this year. Based on what? He hasn't had a chance to have an encore performance in the same system while they continue to build stuff around him. Daniel Jones could go to another level. He could keep the turnovers low and start to get a better feel for the NFL. He could. Now, are you asking me Tony, are you saying he could be Patrick Mahomes level or be on a level with Burrow and Josh Allen? I'm not saying that he can be on a level with those guys. He could, in a hypothetical world, he could, but I'm not saying that he will. But could he be a top 10? Could he be in a class with Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill, Jared Goff, Geno Smith? Like these guys are starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Not everybody is going to get Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. They're not getting those guys. Not everybody's going to have them.
Yeah.
It's how the
Well, I'm with you too. If you told me I can only sign one, Daniel Jones or Saquon Barkley, I'm sorry, I'm taking Daniel Jones. I'm doing the same thing. Not because I believe in Daniel Jones and think he's going to go, but which one's the hardest one to fill? The quarterback position or the running back position? I can go out and find me another running back. I'm sorry to say that, but that's the reality of the NFL is that you can find a running back faster than you can find a quarterback.
Yes, you can. We've now spent 20 minutes opening up this podcast talking about Daniel Jones.
Well, we can go from one New York team to another New York team because if you think Daniel Jones is good and worth $45 million, we could talk about a guy making the Hall of Fame.
We'll be shorter in this topic here. Joe, this is out. When I saw this, I was like, this is the crazy speed dating thing that you would say ever to try and get like a second date or more interest or whatever they did. They sat down with Derek Carr and said, if you come here, you can be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So let's just track out let's put Derek Carr resume next to Matt Stafford. And I talked to you guys about this via text message. 2 organizations that we both think have been a little bit inept, the first ones that they were with, right? There was no genius coaches, no good moves, no nothing that was going on. Matthew Stafford was better for the first 9 years in his situation than Derek Carr was. Then he went to his next destination and immediately won a Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford has all of these accolades of being the first person to this milestone and the first fastest quarterback to throw this many touchdowns and this many yards or whatever. Derek Carr has, I don't think, any of those things. Derek Carr would then have to go to the AFC and the Jets in a team that hasn't been relevant for a Super Bowl in a very long time and win a Super Bowl. At minimum, he'd have to get MVP votes and have 7 to 8 productive seasons with the Jets where he's making the playoffs and playing in AFC championship games in an AFC that we all think has 6 legitimate Hall of Fame candidates. Like we think that these guys could all go on to have illustrious careers in the NFL. And then there's Derek Carr. We think Trevor Lawrence has got it. We think Joe Burrow has it. We think Justin Herbert has it. We think Lamar Jackson, if he stays at the Ravens, has it. Like I didn't even name Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. We're at 6 QBs and then Derek Carr with the Jets. It is crazy to think first ballot. Now, could there be a case that he has a good career and gets what I call my longevity Hall of Fame vote, the one I give to guys like Phillip Rivers, to Hines Ward, those type of players? Yes, I could see that. I could see that scenario. But first ballot, that's crazy talk.
Well, okay, for Derek Carr to even be considered as a Hall of Famer, just not even first ballot, just to be considered Hall of Famer at some point in his career, you're going to have to pass 50,000 yards passing, right? Which is still like I think 17,000 yards away from doing that. So he would have to go out there, and that's that right there is at least 4 or 5 good seasons left in him of just throwing the ball around. Not including now he doesn't. Derek Carr has never been known as the touchdown guy, so he's going to have to throw a lot of touchdowns too for you to be like, well. And then, like Tony said, the new thing that a lot of people are considering is Super Bowl. So he would have to lead the New York Giants to a Super or the New York Jets to a Super Bowl. So one Super Bowl on his resume would make him barely into the Hall of Fame. I think Hall of Fame criteria, but first ballot there. I don't think there's any way. This is just basically the New York Jets, and I'm sorry, just hey, there you go, Derek Carr. We're trying to get you here. We're trying to win some games. But I mean, to put him on first ballot, there's absolutely no way. I mean, I don't even like. We've seen what Phillip Rivers did, and Phillip Rivers never won a Super Bowl. And Phillip Rivers is, in my opinion, a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer, but not first ballot.
No, he's not. And that's the thing is, I do think there's a lot of players that belong in the Hall of Fame that aren't in the Hall of Fame. But I think you need to give credence to what ballot they make it in on. Right. I think that there's something great about saying you are first ballot, no doubt about it, going to the Hall. This player does that. I think there's enough room for a lot of other really, really, really good players that are Hall of Fame caliber that put together in a physical, violent, punishing game to be able to be going to the Hall of Fame. So
I like this guy. I like him, Tony. He's right here. Derek Carr is right here behind me. I love Derek Carr.
I'm gonna get. I will very much enjoy Derek Carr going forward in his career. No questions asked. I want to say this. Here's the scenario in which Derek Carr could make it on the first ballot, Joe. And this is what I'm about to say is insane. The Jets, over the next 5 years, have back-to-back Super Bowl championships in which he is the MVP of both of those Super Bowls. They win them both. And he wins a regular season MVP at some point. Now, all of a sudden, if you go on a 5-year stretch where the Jets are one of the dominant teams and playing in AFC championship games for 4 or 5 years in a row, and Derek Carr is winning a couple Super Bowls and MVPs, then we can talk about it. But that is a mountain to climb that few people in their careers have put together stretches like that, Joe. We're talking about Mahomes. Favre did it for a 3-year stretch with the Packers and only got one of the Super Bowls. Brady did it a few different times. That's why the dude is the freaking GOAT, which is insane. Like, that doesn't happen. So it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you. What would be the extreme cause to put him in the Hall of Fame first ballot? But that would be it. So say he goes to the Jets, he signs a 5-year deal. And I'm not saying he has to win back-to-back. You said back-to-back.
Yes.
But say he wins 2 Super Bowls in the next 5 years, and the 3 he loses in the AFC Championship 3 times to Patrick Mahomes. So say that happens, and then we're looking at like, oh, crap, the Raiders held him down that bad. He was a great quarterback at that time because I think right now he's 33rd on the list of passing yards. So at that time, he's going to be up there in the top of passing yards. He's going to have 2 Super Bowl rings. Okay, then we're looking at, all right, maybe Derek Carr made enough. But come on. Like, really? Like, I love Derek Carr. Loved him as a Raider quarterback. I hate that the Raiders still let him go. It still pisses me off that he's leaving the organization, that a Pro Bowl quarterback like this is leaving. But for me to go, oh, Derek Carr, and Tony, you know how much I backed Derek Carr over the years. For me to go, oh, he's a first ballot Hall of Fame, even me bullshitting me and me trying to be a troll, I can't even make that
argument. Well, let's continue this debate going on to our next topic as we talk about Russell Wilson, because I think that a lot of us had Russell Wilson as first ballot when he was in Seattle. We're all like, the trajectory of this young man's career is going towards, you're playing in multiple Super Bowls, you're getting into the playoffs every year, you're winning a lot of games, you're doing it in an exciting fashion, you're doing great, and then you just hit a roadblock with the Denver Broncos. And just some of the reporting that keeps coming out to me is a little. It just is like, what did the Broncos do to that organization? Like, what happened where they let this guy come in and just have absolute power? Like, they turned it into a Russell Wilson dictatorship where you're looking around going, wait, hold on a second. He had parking lots. He had an entire like fleet of offices just for him and his own private personal team. He had parking spaces. He had like it just, to me, it's like, what did you do? And then to find out like he wanted like full on regime style changes with the front office and the head coach and whatever. Pete Carroll is one of the best coaches, college or pro, in the last 25 years. What is happening?
Well, and then you hear all the stories before, like when the Legion of Boom was there, of who stood up for Russell Wilson, and they picked Russell Wilson over a lot of those defensive guys. Pete Carroll stood by his guy, and then at the end of he's like, you know what? Screw Pete Carroll, get him on out of here. You wanted Pete Carroll and what? Brian Schneider, is that his name? The GM. You wanted both of these guys gone. Of course, they're going to turn around and go, no, you're gone before we're gone. And we all saw it coming together. And I guess at the end of like Russell Wilson, and maybe I'm wrong, Tony, but Russell Wilson is letting a lot of this fame go to his head. Yes. And to me, looks like a fake guy. And I've seen Russell Wilson in person. I didn't really get to like meet him, but I saw Russell Wilson in person, and the way he walked by fans and the way he like he has that persona to him where he's like, I'm up here, everybody else is down here. Maybe he's not like that at home, but the way I saw him in person, I was not impressed with Russell Wilson. And now to hear that in the Denver organization that he had a office on the same floor as the coaching staff, when all the other players only allowed on the first floor, he had one on the second floor with his own coaches and training staff there. And he had input, and that they're saying that's one of the things with him and Nathaniel Hackett. And Nathaniel Hackett gave him so much input into the organization. That's crazy. You do not give a player that much power, because then at that point he's untouchable. He could walk into practice and do whatever he wants and be like, "What? I'm Russell Wilson." Yeah. I'm glad. This is one of the things that I'm glad about. Well, I'm not glad because I'm a Raider fan, and you shouldn't be glad either. Why Sean Payton's there, because Sean Payton's going to break this poor guy down. He's going to break him down.
Yeah, and I think ultimately it's good for the Broncos, and I think the Broncos are going to be a much better team going forward, because even if Russ doesn't have anything left in the tank, right? And I do think that we've been measuring Russ with certain other quarterbacks that aged a certain way when we needed to be evaluating Russ in a fashion of how our mobile quarterbacks. You know, everybody kept saying, like, well, look at how Drew Brees played at that stature. Drew Brees was athletic, but he didn't get by on his athleticism the same way that Russ did. That's a whole nother topic for another day. This is good news for Russ, and I do think that fame can go to your head. Just anything can go to your head. When people are saying nice things about you, you start to walk a little bit taller. You start to just, believe the hype on whatever's going on or being said, or you're doing this or you're crushing that or whatever. You have to be able to find a way to stay even keeled about things that are going positive in your life and continue to work hard to maintain those things and improve on those things. That is the goal. That should be the goal. That's what I talk to my kids about. It's like, you're going to hear nice things about you, but understand all the hard work that you've put in to obtain those things and all the places you want to go so you can have more of that stuff to build on. And I think that Russ got to the point where it was like, I have a sandwich called the Danger Witch. It's got so ridiculous to the point where I think there was reports where he went to the Super Bowl and he was like, I want to be like whoever it was he was watching in that game. I forget which Super Bowl it was that he was at.
Mr. Unlimited.
Yeah, I want these things that these other guys have. And it's like, yes, you will get them, and you can get them, and you work super hard. I don't think that there's a work ethic problem for Russell Wilson. I would imagine Russell Wilson works very hard. At least that's from what I see, he seems to be a hard worker. So It's just how you go about getting it.
I think Pete Carroll is to blame a little bit for this because it's kind of like when you're raising your kid, what's coming to my head right now, Tony, is Talladega Nights when they have those two kids that are I'm all hyped up on Mountain Dew, and they're treating their parents like crap, and their parents are just like, yeah, okay, and Pete Carroll's just letting them do his thing, and then all of a sudden Pete Carroll's like, hey man, that's what the hell's wrong with you? Then they gotta go live with grandma, and grandma's like, no, and that's when Sean Payton's going to get him back to being that little Christian boy or whatever. I don't know. He's going to grab his ear, poke him, make him behave right, and I think he's going to get a lot out of him. I don't think Russ is done at all. I think Russ had a very bad year, and he was playing in his head, and he's going to be back down to the old Russ that we've seen. And I know a lot of people, and I hate to say it, Tony, because I'm a Raider fan, and I don't want to see the Denver Broncos do anything good, but I think we're going to see a little bit of the old Russ back this year once he gets broken down. And it's going to be a long process for Sean Payton, and he's got his work cut out. But we'll see. By the time the first preseason game's here and Russell Wilson is the new Russell Wilson, and he's back to loving football and believing in himself, then we'll see how much of a great coach that Sean Payton really is.
Joe, that's a really funny meme for you to put, like Russell Wilson with Nathaniel Hackett, and they're like, you shut your mouth, old man, before I beat you to dust, right? And then cut to when they're with grandma and they say something and she's just like, she's going nuts, and that's how it is with Sean Payton. That's hilarious.
He's gonna go throw the Broncos Super Bowls in the trophies in the river. It's like they gave him no. I understand what Nathaniel Hackett did though. Like you come into the organization, everybody, and they won't admit it now. Nobody admits it now, but everybody back then was saying the Broncos are one quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl. Not looking at the whole organization, going, no, they're not. No, they're not. They need a lot more than a quarterback. So Nathaniel Hackett took the job. He goes, we got our quarterback, and I'm going to give him whatever we need to do to win a Super Bowl. Well, it backfired on you, and it backfired hard, and that's what we saw. But I understand what Nathaniel Hackett was doing, but he didn't have the pedigree as a head coach because he was a brand new head coach that he should have set his way of thinking right then and right there. And that's what I think hurt Nathaniel Hackett and why he's not a head coach anymore.
No, I disagree. Nathaniel Hackett got a bad rap, but if Aaron Rodgers goes to that Broncos team and not Russell Wilson, with the way that defense played last year, there's no reason for me to think they would have played different. They probably would have actually played better. They would have been on the field a lot less. There would have been guys that were getting like targeted and hit in like it would have been, and it would have moved along a lot better than it did with Aaron Rodgers. And the Broncos probably win double-digit games and make the playoffs this year. And Nathaniel Hackett is still the head coach in Denver, and Aaron Rodgers is going on his second year, and we're not talking about him and the Packers. Like Russ coming in, having to mesh, getting all of that power, first-time head coach. It was just it was a collision course for disaster from the beginning. Russ walked in and said, I finally got the guy who's going to get me and whatever, but he didn't have the guy that said, no questions asked, you have to know this. You have to know what's going on. What's going on, Bogart? Hope you're doing well and having a good, wonderful off season. Let's go to our last topic here and talk. It says draft prospects news. If there's anybody you guys are interested in that, I haven't really done nearly as much research and watching players and stuff that I did last year. Mainly, it's been selfishly players I would like to talk or would like the Chargers to take. But one player that I've really been intrigued in, and Joe and I have been talking a lot about, is the hype that's going around Anthony Richardson and how far he's moving up. And before we get into it, I would just like to say this. I'm rooting for this young man. I think he has excellent potential in the NFL and hope that he gets drafted to the correct position. But Joe is telling me that like the odds on Anthony Richardson being the number one overall pick they're going up, right? They're going in favor of he's like,
yeah, they just got better of him being the number one pick. Yahoo Sports 16 minutes ago, Tony. So why we've been on the air, Yahoo Sports, I don't know how many people believe in Yahoo Sports, but they just put out another article saying Anthony Richardson's draft potential intrigues the Bears at number 1 overall. But then there's another article, and that I've been reading too, that scouts are different on Anthony Richardson. Some have him going 4th round, some have him going number 1 overall. So how can you justify taking somebody number 1 overall when you're split that far in the NFL of some people liking him 4th round and I you know who I blame, Tony? You know who I blame for all this quarterback controversy? And I was going to tell you I blame Brock Purdy. I blame Brock Purdy right now because he was the last pick of the NFL draft, and everybody wants to find their next Brock Purdy, and they don't want to be the one that misses out on somebody that comes out with great potential. So that's who I'm blaming, Tony. But no way. So if you're me as a Raider fan, I would love Anthony Richardson to go number 1. I would love for him to go number 1. Go ahead, take him number 1 all day, because then you're letting all 3 of the other guys fall to me at number 7. Go ahead and take Anthony Richardson number 1.
So it's crazy because it's like, so your thought process is that Brock Purdy made this happen, but Brock Purdy is literally the last pick of the draft. So it's not that these guys are what they're doing is talking about going the opposite way. I think that they don't want to miss out on the next potential, right? They look at Anthony Richardson and they go, wow, we see a little bit of Josh Allen in that game. If we can work with his accuracy, if we can get his footwork down, and we can get him delivering the ball in the right spots, we could have ourselves a big-time player. We could have this. So we don't want to miss on the upside of the Mahomes, Josh Allen's, these bigger guys that are succeeding in that way. To me, the Brock Purdy thing is, I think that it makes guys like Stetson Bennett is going to get drafted this year, and he's going to get drafted earlier, even though he's surrounded by all that talent at Georgia. And then guys like Max Duggan from TCU are going to get drafted a little bit earlier because of Brock Purdy, not Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson, to me, is a 1st or a 2nd round selection, but it needs to end up on the right team in the right scenario for that to happen. Because if I told you this privately, and I'll say it publicly, I will root against the Bears if they give up on Justin Fields and take Anthony Richardson. And I think that they would be doing Anthony Richardson a disservice by putting him out there, making him the number 1 overall pick for the Chicago Bears. Like, that to me would be bad news on all fronts.
Tony, it's unbelievable. I put a video about Justin Fields and the Bears possibly traded him or whatever, that rumor that was out there. It's unbelievable to me how many people forget how great Justin Fields is. And they're like, well, he can't throw. All he is run. Go back and watch Justin Fields at Ohio State. Please do that before you start saying that Justin Fields is a crappy quarterback and all he does is run. All he did was run last year because he had no offensive line and he had no wide receivers. He had to do something in that Chicago offense to get them going. Justin Fields is I think he's a top quarterback. I can be a top quarterback in this league. You know how much I love Justin Fields when he was coming out of the draft and me and you fighting over him and Trevor Lawrence. But to get rid of Justin Fields for an unproven guy that you hope that has potential to do something, and like Anthony Richardson, you're nuts. The Chicago Bears would be nuts to do that.
They would. And Bogart has said in this last comment here where he thinks that the Bears are just trying to raise the value. They're leaking out these stories that they're really interested in pursuing another quarterback, and they're really listening to trade offers with Justin Fields. And I hope that these are all just things so that they can go to a team like the Raiders, who, when they miss out on Aaron Rodgers, when Aaron Rodgers has completely pulled the dark escape room mask over our eyes again, and he winds up staying with the Green Bay Packers again this offseason, and everybody spent time blabbering about that. And the Raiders end up with, well, we can look at Jimmy G as a veteran, and then let's go get ourselves a rookie. Who do we want, right? I think that the Raiders are a team that could say, hey, Chicago, we're on the phone. We got the 7th overall pick this year. We'll give you our 1st round pick next year, which is probably going to be a top 10 pick again if we're starting a rookie. Sorry, Joe, I hate to say that to you. Well, we're a full year away. But you're going to be getting a decent pick from us next year. So you're getting this year's first, next year's first. Let's say we throw in a couple seconds or thirds, sprinkle them. And we're giving you a lot for your first overall pick. Now the Bears move back to 7. They go ahead and get themselves an offensive lineman at 7, which is great for them. They stick with Justin Fields and move this thing in the right direction as to where the Raiders can say, nope, we're moving up to 1. We've identified Bryce Young, who's going to play in predominantly dome, warm weather places out here, West Coast. Hopefully, like he'll get more of those games. And we can move on and have the more accurate, pro-ready quarterback in Bryce Young than rather take the bigger gamble on the – they're just Will Levis is exciting. Anthony Richardson is exciting to me. These players are exciting, but they're also like they're going to need time. They're going to need time to figure stuff out. Like I don't just think that they're going to come on and light the world on fire, you know?
Yeah, and I think the same thing that Bogart's saying, in that the Bears are trying to just do whatever they can to get people ready for that number 1 pick. Because you got a couple teams that want to move up. You got Carolina Panthers, you got the Texans, you got the Indianapolis Colts, you got the Raiders, you got all these teams that need a quarterback right now and want to go after your young guy and could go up there. But I think the best bet for the Bears would actually be multiple trades down, Tony. Trade with the Houston Texans, move down, get a pick or two, go to number 2, then trade number 2 and go down again to one of these other quarterback needing teams. I think that's the best because the Bears don't need a quarterback. They can be happy with, like you said, offensive line, or still trade down far enough to like number 4 and get one of the top defensive guys in this draft. And you're helping your team either way. And you pick up multiple draft picks because that's what the Bears need to build on, is just getting more and more players into their system and building that way. So I think the Bears would benefit from not one big trade, but a couple multiple small trades here and just move down and stay in the top 5.
I do agree with that. I think if they trade back to 4 or 7 or whatever, why not trade back again with the Saints? Where are the Saints at in this draft? You know, like let's trade back there and let them come up, and we'll still get a first-round pick. It'll be at the end somewhere. Go ahead and get him one of the edge rushers that falls there, or again, get him a interior guards are great late in that round. Like, go get yourself one of these really exciting, big 6'3" converted wide receiver cornerbacks that we're seeing. You know, like that's get one of these. Get a really good player in the first round, but load up on draft picks in this current draft and load up on picks in next year's draft. And I don't love the idea that the Bears, everybody keeps going, the Bears don't have any weapons, right? But I think that what my thing is, Darnell Mooney is a very good receiver. Is he a number 1? No, but he was injured. And they trade for Chase Claypool. Let's see that with another offseason. Chase Claypool is not a number 1, but also a good wide receiver. My guy, Cole Kmet, top 5 right there. Turned it on at the end of the season. Am I telling lies about that? He didn't. He turned that shit on at the end of the year. They got 2 good running backs. If they get active in free agency with wide receivers this year and they can convince or acquire somebody or something like that to the Bears, now all of a sudden you have something cooking. You're able to go ahead and bring some defensive players into your building and allow your coach to do what he does. Like, just start coaching up this defense in the right fashion. And I do think that they had one of the kids that I wanted the Chargers to draft, Dominique Robinson, I believe, is an edge rusher they got. He looked okay pass rushing in a couple of games I saw. Second year, you know, maybe that improves to a guy who gets 7.5, 8 sacks next year and a lot of QB pressures. Like, I think the Bears are in a better spot. But if they trade away Justin Fields for an organization where your best quarterback is Jay Cutler, Rex Grossman, Caleb Haney, Eric Kramer, Jim McMahon, like, stop me when you've heard enough names where you're like, who are these guys? Because this is they got a guy that I think deserves another couple of years to figure it out, and will figure it out. And especially the Bears just got approved funding for a new stadium.
Yeah.
Build a dome for Chicago. Build a dome and put Justin Fields in a dome. it's over. Like it'll be great news for you.
Yeah, and then that would give them 6 games in a dome, right? Because all the division except for Green Bay is in a dome already.
Yes.
What's up, Zero? How you doing? Let's wrap this up, Tony. With one thing, we didn't get to get into it, but we need to do another show about it. Is the Raiders, and I love the Raiders and Dave Ziegler and the way that he was on busting with the boys and just looked out of it. And he said the Raiders might not find an immediate answer at quarterback this year. So one of the quarterbacks that I might throw at you, Tony, and say that the Raiders might. I'm starting to lean towards that the Raiders might not use that 7th overall pick on a quarterback and wait until like a guy like Jake Hayner later on from Fresno State. Just my opinion, but we're gonna have to talk about that a little bit later with the Raiders. But anyways, the NFL Combine is what, next week?
Yeah.
Is there any prospect on the top of your mind? I know you weren't ready for this that you think is going to gain a lot of ground next week.
Yeah, cornerback out of Oregon, Christian Gonzalez. He's somebody I text Mike about right away because I was looking at stuff and people are like, "Oh, Christian Gonzalez is going to be a late first-round pick," and I was like, one of the problems the Chargers had is tackling. Like it's the Asante Samuel Jr. is a little bit smaller. They had issues with, they drafted JT Woods at safety. So tackling in the secondary, run support. I think Christian Gonzalez is a great player, and now the hype is just rising. And then once this kid runs 4.34 and he's 6'2.5" or whatever, it's gonna be off the charts. I'm starting to hear a little bit more buzz with Keely Ringo as another cornerback from Georgia I liked. Some of the wide receivers that are starting to get a little bit more juice that I was also looking at that I was hoping would fall down there. I'm seeing mock drafts with Jalen Hyatt going super high. I'm a little shocked at where people have Jordan Addison going. Like if Jordan Addison is on the board at 21 for the Chargers and they don't take him, Joe, I'm going to lose my freaking mind. Like I will literally be shouting, and I'm sure we'll be live at some point for the first round of the draft. I will be shouting my face. Like, why did we not take Jordan Addison? Yeah, I think that's kind of where I haven't looked into first round edge rushers. I've looked at a few later round guys, and all of my information comes off, the guys that I trust, that I hear them talking about, and I go and watch and I look at them and I'm like, oh, how impressed am I with what they were doing with their highlights? Go watch a quarter of a game they played here that's supposed to be a good game that they had. No, I don't know. I don't know what's going on because this seems to be the least exciting draft, Joe, that I have heard in a while, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think people are like, there's no the idea that like Will Anderson was that guy that people talked about being a no doubt number one, lock it up. Now all of a sudden, even DJ had him on a mock draft with Seattle at 5. I was like, wait. For the last like 2 years, everybody has mocked Will Anderson. Everybody said he's going to be the number 1 overall pick, and every time I watch him, I'm like, why isn't this guy? This guy's great, but maybe again, plays at Alabama, surrounded by a lot of talent. Although Jalen Carter's the guy from Georgia, it's not like there's a.
I told you that I could see Will Anderson being the one that drops because of so much hype that was on him, and now everybody's gonna love everybody else. Even though I think Will Anderson should still go top 3 overall, he could be one of those guys that continue to fall. We see him slip and then a good team winds up with him, and it's going to be like, damn it, how'd you get Will Anderson?
Yes, I saw Zero's in here as we wrap up this show. Dude, was there a player you want to talk about?
No, I one guy that has been intriguing to me, and I keep looking him up, is Joey Porter Jr., the cornerback out of Penn State. Yeah. And just to see where he can go, because I've seen him go in some mock drafts high, and then I've seen him drop at the end of the first round. And I think I want to see how his combine goes and where he can go, just because of his dad and the history there, but I think he can go from being the number one quarterback taken to the number 3 or 4 quarterback taken. He's just one of the guys that I keep every time I look up NFL stuff, or combine stuff. He's one of the guys that I keep continuing to look at.
Yeah.
I like
don't know.
bloodline. I like the bloodline guys for some reason. I like seeing where they end up. That's just one of the things that I like to look into.
I do think that they have a certain like a certain edge in aspects of it, right? You get a little peek behind the curtain of what to expect and what's going on, and maybe a little bit more business savvy because somebody's excuse me, already been there, done that. A lot more connections and opportunities. I think that does help out. You're going into a less of an unknown space and something that is wildly unknown and so massive, because you're going in and it's like, they're like, hey, you got to come here and we want you to run and jump and do all of these crazy things. And it's overwhelming. But I think if somebody who's already done it is close to you, it can give you a little bit of an advantage. So I like it. I root for him. I root for all these guys where I watched Joe Horn play and have one of the great touchdown celebrations. And now his son is a fantastic, cornerback for the Carolina Panthers. And I go, you're getting old. You're getting too damn old. Too fast.
I know. I feel old when I see people retiring, and I'm like, man, I remember when they came into the league. It's like, it is what it is, I guess, Tony. Age is just a number because we both look great.
Oh, yeah. What a positive note to go out on. Again, this is MJT Football. We appreciate you stopping by. Zero in here wants to talk about Ben DiNucci and Josh Gordon, elite duo, being 0-2. I know it must crush Mike on the mic, who is not here. Hopefully we'll be back with him episode next week. Yes, Mike, Joe.
XFL Thursday night over Amazon Thursday night all day, every day.
Wow, that is a hot shot at the NFL.
Just saying. I'm just saying.
XFL.
Well, one last thing. I don't want to get too deep into it because I got to go. But one last thing is, this is what I've been talking about, Tony. And replace Thursday night football with a minor league NFL on Thursday, and would be on top of it. Would be good.
I love it. I love it. See you, Stephen Armstrong. Thank you for hanging out with us. Always appreciate it. Zero, Bogard, stopping through. Give me money. Yeah, another great show. Subscribe, MJT Football, whether you're on the audio version on the podcast or you're on YouTube. Come on over. It's live. Comments are always fire. 3 friends who love talking football, but we're always looking for a 4th. So hit that subscribe button. Joe, just like Derek Carr, you too could be a first ballot Hall of Famer.